So let's talk about what the biggest superpower you as a buyer or seller have in any negotiation. And that is the ability and the spine to be able to walk away from something when it's just not going to work. And that means not being beholden to the commitment bias. See, all of us have this thing to where we commit to something. You know, the handshake is my bond, or the signing of the document is our bond. And legally, there's a lot of that takes place in this. But when we're talking about counteroffers or making offers or having negotiations about repairs or price or closing costs or time frames, the person who is actually able to walk away is the strongest. Now, you might not always be in that position. There are a lot of cases where a seller really needs to be able to get that buyer to commit to moving forward, because it's the only way they're going to be able to get their replacement home out of state, or that's going to fit with their timelines of what they need to do, or the financial restraints that they're under. Buyers, on the other hand, typically always have the upper hand, regardless of the market, because a buyer can move on to another property for sale. Now, the downside to this is that buyers need to understand that when they walk away, they're likely not going to be welcomed back should they change their mind. And this is where we start to worry about the greener pastures. Is this deal worth doing on the terms just because your ego got hurt and you're not getting exactly what you want? Or does it make sense that this is turning into such a bad deal and such a hassle that you will actually commit to another home to fulfill your needs of being a homeowner, and you're willing to start the negotiations over? The person that has the power to be able to leave the negotiating table saying, look, I tried to meet you where I possibly could. You didn't agree, so we're done, is the one that holds the power. Now, that does not mean that power transfers to your next negotiation. And we have to explain that to buyers and sellers, because all too often we'll have a buyer or a seller that will find themselves in these situations, and they'll say, to heck with it. We're not going to move forward with it. Tell them to go pound sand. They move on to the next buyer or the next home, and they find themselves in the same negotiating position on the same terms they were previously. These things don't transfer. So you have to make sure that you know for sure what you're asking for is reasonable. Not reasonable because you think it's fair, or because that's what you want, but because that's what the market supports. And sometimes when you leave one possible transaction and you move to another and you find yourself in the same situation, the problem is you. The problem is your expectations. The problem is your demands, whether you're the buyer or seller. Being unreasonable will never get your transaction done, regardless of what the market's doing. Make sure you have smart advice and you have analytics on your side.